All right. I have Michael for this week's podcast episode, and I am so excited that he was able to come into our small podcast network and just share some of his wise advice. Again, if you're new to the podcast, it is a productivity podcast. I get to chat up some really amazing people who are doing things that I really admire and hopefully want to get from them any advice or tips or ways that they have overcome any obstacles that led to their wonderful career choices and their goals currently. And for this episode, I am excited that he gets to share some of his highlights with us, starting with his background. So, Michael, you have the floor. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks, Monica. Just really glad to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me on the show. Um, so, just a little bit about my background. I've been through 5 different industries as a leader in each of those different industries. So, I guess I'm a little older than I look. I'm not really sure. My kids tell me I look pretty old, though. So, it is what it is. Um, but yeah, in all of the different roles that I've held in all of the different 5 industries, it's always been for me about the people. It's always been about how do we support each other? How can we show up for each other? How do we know the best ways of engaging? And also another theme that runs through all of these roles is I love to teach people. I have a master's degree in teaching, and so currently I work in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm a director of statistical programming at Gilead Sciences, and I run an academy there. And what I do is I teach diverse, young, early talent programmers how to be pharma programmers. And I think, that's really fun teaching them programming languages, but I think it's even more fun to just teach them what's the best way to be when you're in an office, and what's the best way to support your teammates and be a good teammate and stand up for yourself and all of the rest. So that's just a little bit about me. One fun fact, I do know the constellations. Because one of those industries that I've been in, I was a planetarium show presenter, which is, you go to the museum, you go to the planetarium room, and it gets really dark, and you point out, well, there's Orion's belt, and here's, Jupiter, and here's the moon, and things like that.
Oh, those are nice. And thank you for adding that fun fact. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let me start with, so you've listed a number of things, and I want to know, how do you manage your time effectively so you can mm, handle those multiple projects and responsibilities without losing your mind, basically?
Well, I know you are up to a lot of things yourself, and so it's absolutely, no spoiler here to say it can be really hard determining what's your priority at any given moment, right? And so I guess my big tip, or the trick that I always employ is that I think 2 ways every morning. I think very strategically, what are the things that are facing me today? What are the meetings that I have going on? What are the conversations that I need to have? But I also think very philosophically. I sit down and say, should I be having this meeting? Is it really important for me to have this interaction with this person, or can I let them struggle a little bit on their own so that they can grow and so that they can grab hold of some growth and so that they can find the answer on their own? Or is this somebody that I need to foster their growth a little bit more? And so that philosophical way of thinking about what's in my day and what should I be doing, it's really the what should I be doing, so that's just how I approach every day.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What should I be doing? I'm going to definitely like notate that because juggling a lot of things, you want to catch them all. I'm not gonna lie, there are days I want to be everywhere, and sometimes that can burn you out, and then you're nowhere. So I love that you brought that out. So you've listed the should, but what or is it the main technique or strategies that you use to prioritize those tasks, or do you have like a task organizer? Do you have like a accountability partner that's like, hey, Michael, stay on task? What does that look like?
Well, I think we need all the supports that are in our lives, and we try to cultivate the other ones that might help us on our way. Uh, Years ago, I listened to an audiobook by Rory Vaden. And I think it's called Take the Stairs, is one of his big books. The other one is called Procrastinate on Purpose. And I love that book. I think it's such a great book. If you know Stephen Covey and the, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Rory Vaden is also this huge fan of Stephen Covey, but he takes it further and he created something called the focus funnel. And I love the focus funnel. It's, okay, I'm keeping 5 or 6 things in my head. I have sticky notes that are around my desk. I have things that are written down. I have things that are on my calendar. And what he recommends is that you take all of those and figuratively or in some better way, you take every piece, every little thing that you need to do, the things that pop up through the day, the things that happened yesterday, the things that are in your head, the things that are on the sticky notes, and you pour it into the focus funnel. And essentially it's you asking questions of each task. So is this a task that I even have to do? It's that philosophical piece, right? If you don't do it and nobody screams, maybe you don't really have to do it, right? And that's the scream test, right? But it's the do I need to do this question? And then there's the next question, which is, can I delegate this to someone, or can I automate this somehow, right? So a couple of questions there. If you find that you can't get rid of the task, right? You can't just throw it away and hide it under the bed, and you can't hand it off to somebody else, and you can't somehow have your Outlook sort your mail for you, for instance, having automation, then it's a task you think you need to do. And then it's a question of, do I do it now, or can I procrastinate on purpose and push it later?
Mm.
And so I love his framework. I think it's just so effective, and it's really helped me. I believe that I've cut down about 15 to 18 hours of work every week by doing this very specific set of sorting through tasks and putting them through that focus funnel. And then, of course, if you get rid of things, more things pop up. And so now, it's harder now to sort what does come my way. But such a great tool.
Thank you for sharing that. I am guilty of having tasks and regressing to procrastinating on purpose and on not on purpose too. So I'll definitely have to check out that book because I love a lot of the ideas that you brought out. Um, well, we're not superheroes. We would all like to be. Have there been moments where you felt overwhelmed or stressed out? And if you did encounter those moments, how did you handle it effectively?
Being stressed out and having those moments where it's hard to grab hold of anything and get anything done, that happens to all of us, Wineka. Everybody, right? We all have those moments. As I tell the young people in my academy, you are an emotional being
Mm.
that thinks you're a thinking being, right? So you have all of these emotions that bubble up from any moment to any other moment during the day. And so when you get stressed out, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you get stressed out. It's, do you have the self-care techniques in place? Do you have those practices where you can calm yourself down? You can go on a walk, you can eat a power bar, have an apple, do the things that are going to be helpful to you. One of the things that I love at my day job is that they have a special room that's a wellness room. And so anytime you feel like, man, I just need a nap, I need 10 minutes to put my head down. I'm going to be so much more effective if I go and do that. Or I just need a place to go and meditate, or I need a place to go and just breathe in and out for 10 minutes, right? So those are just some of the things that I try to keep in mind is, how much am I taking care of myself? Am I hydrated? Am I hangry right now, right? You have to ask yourself those questions. Otherwise, how do you take care of yourself and therefore make yourself better at the rest of the day?
I like that. So for example, where you're like talking about had enough water, etc. Are there specific habits that you employ in those moments?
It depends on what the moment feels like for me, right? If I feel like there are too many things that are on my plate, and I'm just kind of shuffling things around, I'm not really being effective, then that is a great time to just stand up, walk around, go outside. Um, at my day job, what I love to do is every morning I get there and I climb the 6 flights of stairs to my seventh floor where I work. It pumps me up. It gets me to remember that I'm lucky to have breath in my body. I'm lucky to have a body that is capable of going up 6 flights of stairs. How grateful should I be? Very grateful, right? And so it depends on what the moment feels like, but quite often getting outside, breathing fresh air, going on a 10 or 20-minute walk can be really, really effective. The other thing is, I think we never hydrate enough, right? I think we're always thinking that, oh yeah, I had a sip of water this morning. Well, that was 4 hours ago, right? So I think staying hydrated is the other big secret. I always have something at my desk that I can sip from. So.
Oh, I want to add on to that. Do you have like you don't, and I tell people you don't have to be extreme as anyone. Like I hate the ones who are like I wake up at 3, I get 6 hours of workout. We're not talking about that. But do you have a pre-day like ritual, like a mindfulness habit that helps you before you get your mindset ready for the day?
Well, I mean, you bring it up, and I know you're an expert in this field when it comes to, taking care of your body and really being in your physical self. My practice is really quite simple. I try to get out every morning and go for a 45-minute walk. Usually I carry hand weights with me so that I can do some arm exercises as I'm walking. And, I must look very silly, but it's fine. I feel like it's engaging lots of muscle groups at the same time, and it's not so heavy, so it's not bad for my back or anything like that. But yeah, 45-minute walk every morning. It usually comes out to I don't know, maybe 8 laps around this one little pond that's nearby. It's a half mile, so it gives me a chance. Is it 8 laps? It may not be nearly as many as that, but I'll let your listeners do the math. Um, but yeah, I think that that's one of the best things that I do for myself every day is remember that I am a physical being that really needs to be taken care of on that physical level. And then you mentioned mindfulness. I do not usually do the meditation that I should be doing, but one thing I do is I write a lot. I'm incessantly writing, and so every morning I write 3 pages, and it's whatever tumbles out of my head and through my pen, or through my fingers if I'm typing on the keyboard. And I find that that's just really helpful to just spill out what's all the leftover thoughts from the day before or from my weird dream that I had, and just kind of get those out in the open. So that's a mindfulness practice that I engage in daily.
Oh, I like that. When you do have setbacks, because we all have that, or challenges, how do you keep yourself motivated? And you're a family man, so I can't even imagine, right? When I have setbacks, it's very easy for people to look at me and just say, wow, she just keeps on, she's successful, nothing gets to her. Because I get to come home and cry in my own sphere. I get to have my moments of weaknesses solo. And I count that as a blessing because it's not as traumatic. I'm gonna say that because people always assume, oh, are you sure you're going through so much by yourself? And I'm very much a grounded human being. I understand things are gonna go wrong, and when they do, I'm so grateful I don't have to take care of other beings when those things happen.
Sure.
I say that first because now when I speak to people who have other things and I look at my parents who were immigrants to this country, and it was always harder and harder. And I sometimes there's compassion I have in our imperfect upbringing because I'm like, can you imagine dealing with so much and then so many things you gotta still manage, you know? So I want to throw it out there that I respect those who have other things, other beings that they're taking care of. So I'm going to put you in the hot seat. How do you manage that setback? What is your what does that look like for Michael?
Well, when I go, yeah, it's ah, we all have those setbacks. We all have those moments where you're interacting with a teammate, it doesn't go well. Your boss looks at something that you've done and says, "Gosh, I really wish you hadn't done it that way." But you put in all of your time and effort, and you were so excited about whatever that was. Um, yeah, I mean the ways that I try to handle the setbacks is I try to remember that I'm a unique being and I can pour my uniqueness out into the universe. And sometimes the universe will have harsh judgments for that, and sometimes it won't. And not to take it too personally, right? Um, you can write things, paint things, make beautiful music. You will always have a critic. I mean, you could be Christina Aguilera, and somebody could say, "Well, I don't really prefer her music," right? I mean, and she's incredibly successful, writes beautiful music and performs it so well. But you're still going to have a critic, right? You're still going to have those moments where you have those setbacks. So my strategy is always to remember that uh, it, having judgment passed on me doesn't really matter. You know, it's going to happen, and it could even be self-judgment. It could be that inside self-talk that is going through and saying, "You're not good enough. You didn't do this right. This person didn't like it," whatever it is. And I try to just scrub that away. The one huge daily thing that I haven't even talked about is I think about what I'm grateful for every day. And almost every day it comes back being people in my life, or maybe my pets or something like that. But it's gosh, I'm lucky every day that I'm here. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. 5 minutes from now is not guaranteed. And so if something didn't go well, then I have two choices. I can sit and stew. If I need that moment where I need to, cry it out, okay, I can cry it out. And sometimes I can do that with one of my kids, and that's okay. It's modeling the fact that we don't always get it right, or people don't always receive what we give in the best way. And so that's okay. But if I'm thinking about, what's the best approach for how I approach, how I deal with it after those 5 minutes, after I've taken that moment to process. The next moment of my life is going to come whether I do good things with it or bad things with it, or self-righteous things with it, or whatever. So I try to remember, gosh, I'm lucky to have this next moment. What did I learn from when my boss talked to me about that thing, or when my teammate said, this is not what we need, or whatever the setback is, right? You get a flat tire in the morning on the way to work, and that is a setback. Well, if you just keep on moving forward, that is going to get you somewhere. If you stand and stew and shake your fist at the universe doesn't always really hear that, right? So, um, so yeah, when I deal with it, I take the moment that I need to. I acknowledge that the feelings that I have are real feelings. And once I've processed that for a few minutes or a few moments, then I move forward, right? If you add one step to the next step to the next step, you eventually get somewhere. And if you just stand still and cry, well, you can do that for a bit, but otherwise it just holds you back.
Ooh, I love all of that. I thank you for um, sharing those thoughts. And it also seems like this adds into the question I was going to ask about mind shifting. Keeping a positive attitude is a choice. I'm under the impression that I have moments where I'll say 90% of the time, I'm a joyful, cheerful person. This is not an act. I've been this way. So whenever anyone sees a photo and they're like, "You look so happy from doing an event," I remind that I've always been happy. I'm not happier because I'm doing this. I've always been this person. So I'm constantly having that conversation with people because I think, especially in America, I've realized people are big user of people and things to state that they are happy. And I come from a place where you're happy and things are, things come and go, right? And
Right.
so I have to always correct people when, and it's not because it's a pet peeve, it's just, it doesn't make sense. Like, you've known me years, like, I've never been a dull, depressive person. So when they
Right.
state those comments, you're giving the illusion to others that to get that happiness I have is because I have these things, and it's not true. So I'm under the impression it's a choice, if, and especially if you don't have medical issues that make it harder or mental issues. So I don't take away from that. But how do you shift your mind to go back to positive when you are like, okay, now I have to really like, change gear?
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it isn't easy, but I so agree with everything you just said. That's what all the research shows. That's what you know on an instinctive level. That's what I know on an instinctive level. Right. The happiness is something that precedes everything else. If I am happy and I walk into a room with my pets, with family members, I can engage with those people. I can pet the pets and let them know that I really love them. And yes, of course, you're a good boy. Yes, you're a good girl. Right. If you really live your life in such a way that you engage in a sense of gratitude pretty much all the time, gosh, what is there not to be happy about? I mean, we could mention political names or situations around the globe that are really depressing and very, very rightly upsetting. I don't know. There are some things in this world I can control today, and there's some things in this world that I cannot. And so, where I can, I donate to the charities. Where I can, I donate my time and my volunteerism to help those who need. And then otherwise, I try to remember I am very lucky and don't throw that away. Don't pretend that that doesn't have value. If I wake up every morning and I see my amazing wife and we can spend a few minutes together having coffee, I've already been luckier than some of my friends who have a spouse who is ill or a spouse who's passed away. So I think you're absolutely right. It's a matter of it's that perspective of if I'm happy, then I'm making the most of everything that's going on around me, right? It's not that the things that are going on around me have given me the happiness. Gosh, if that were so, then you'd see all the celebrities in the world always being happy all the time. And I just don't know that that's true.
I agree. Oh my God, thank you for sharing that. That insight is it's really weird because when I share that with people, unless you're from a different part of the country or you've lived experiences like yourself, a lot of people think it's a gimmick. They're like, oh no, this is probably you turn, and then they'll come visit me. They're like, oh, you are always like this. And then it kind of turns them off. You would think it's like, oh, she wasn't faking it. Now I like this person more. It turns them off because it's like, I thought it was an illusion that I can break. And now that it's not, I don't want any part of this person because it's going to show up that the fact that I'm not this person too. So I just love that someone else has said it besides me. And I always think people listen more when it's not coming from someone they know. I don't know why that is. So thank you that you brought that. Do you think that this adds to how successful you are in your productivity with juggling different things and you're people facing? People don't know how hard that is to be a people facing servant of anything. You have to take your worries out in the door. You have to present your best foot forward so they can get the message across. Do you think that being positive and appreciative serves in the way that you are productive in all the fields that you take on?
I think so. I mean, the more positive you are, the more you recall that you can have an impact in the world, that you can add up all of your small actions on this global scale. You can add up all of those actions and make things that give other people joy. I was talking with my son about this yesterday. We were just texting back and forth, and he said, "Please listen to this song. It's so meaningful to me." And I listened to it, and I said, it is amazing that you can create something that will speak to so many people, right? And you don't know who it'll land well with or who it'll get thinking about something or get them energized in a creative project of their own. But yes, I think that having a positive affect to yourself, being really genuine about it. I mean, if you have depressing moments, if you have those sad moments, if you're really angry or upset, I think you should be true to that.
Mm.
But I think if you dwell in those things and can't divorce yourself from those harder moments and remember how lucky you are, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing everybody else a disservice. So yes, I think, bringing positivity to every interaction that I have, any chance I get, yeah, it absolutely makes people more willing to work with me. It makes for a more positive and upbeat, atmosphere. It makes things go better.
Mm. I looked a lot about, I'll say this very lightly because what people post online, I'm also very mature enough to know that there's segments of bad days and whatnot. But when I look at your thoughts on LinkedIn, you're so diverse in the way you manage people around you, and that helps with what you're doing. What advice would you give for someone, say in your you like you do the youth teaching, correct? Where you teach
Right.
them about office, man, all those things are very applicable. What advice would you give them when they look at someone like you and they're like, I don't know if I can balance that. I don't know if I could be successful. What do you typically say to kind of let them take a sign of breath or a relief so that they're not overwhelmed?
I just remind people that you should be as true to yourself as you can be, as authentic to yourself as you can be. And remember, um, anybody that you've ever seen who's an overnight success, that overnight success probably took them 20 years, right? Right. So, I mean, it looks like they were suddenly, very impressive to everybody in the world, but really it took a long time. So, take the small steps, take little steps in the directions that you want your life to go. If you want to be heading in a direction where you're helping people with nutrition and exercise, then you have those conversations. You start exercising more. You watch what you eat. You read those kinds of books. You don't have to be the author of one immediately, right? You don't have to have your own podcast and share the insights right away. You start down a path that's appealing to you and it's exciting, and see where it goes. But also reflect, because a year from now maybe you are hosting that that great show that's fitness TV now featuring, you know that could be the dream that's come true, but you need to reflect back on where you started and remember it was adding up tiny, tiny actions that all compounded to get you there. So chase the dream, whatever the dream is. Be really true to what your dream is, not what somebody else tells you you should be doing. And then keep track of the fact that you're making progress.
Hmm. I know you've shared a lot of resources that help you, and those are definitely something that I want to point out. I know you authored or in the process of finishing a book, correct? I want
Right. Yeah.
to, okay. How is that going? How is that like? I want to kind of like touch on that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So the book is called In Kind, Consciously Craft a Meaningful Life and Career. I wrote it in 9 months because it's something that I have just been studying bits and pieces of across my entire career. And I went to a writing retreat, and I met these amazing coaches and met these other great authors. And so it will be coming out in January. January 15th is the release date. Get a copy of In Kind if it's something that you feel like you need to have a kinder workplace. Or if you need to give a hint to somebody, give it to them as a gift, so maybe they can act a little kinder. Um, but but yeah, no, writing this book was just, it's been so much joy for me, and it has been that process of just adding up little bits and pieces along the way. It's looking at Rory Vaden and remembering, oh right, I do the focus funnel, and whether I mention him explicitly in the book or not, there's so many other people like Kristen Hadid and Sean Acor. There are these other, very smart people who've done research and really understand these things that have resonated fully with me. So I've decided to dive into each of their teachings and pull all of those things together, my own experiences where I got things wrong, and then figured out, well, there are better ways of doing this, and what are those better ways? So yeah, so that's what the book is all about, and that is how I approach the different practices that I have. Yeah.
Very nice. I want to wrap it up because I want to ask you this question. I did not send this question to you on
Sure.
purpose. If you were to write a love letter to yourself, your younger self, what three main things would you include in that letter?
Have faith
Mm,
would probably be the biggest one. It's um, the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, the belief that maybe I don't belong here, that I think gets in the way of a lot of young people,
mm,
especially people who went through COVID and had to do distance learning and things like that. So that's something I would definitely tell myself is, um, yeah, have faith. It gets better. Another thing is just consistency. It's you don't get fit overnight. You get fit from weeks and months of dedication and trying to find the joy in it. The other thing would be pause and breathe it all in. It's so often that we're rushing from one class to get to the next class, to get that degree, to get that job, to get the better job. And I I think we miss so many things if that's all we're ever doing is jumping to the next thing. So I think it would be just pause and breathe it all in. That'd
Yeah.
be the
Wow, that is so. Um, um, my look is also a look of someone that's like, I'm definitely gonna take those advice and remind myself that some of the small dreams you had when you were a kid, you're living it. Because now we're so busy chasing, like, okay, now let me make sure I meet this goal I had, and we forget that somewhere along the line as a kid, we were begging to even have a fragment of our dreams successful. So I appreciate that. You have been a wonderful aspiration to talk to. I would love to follow up January when you have your book to kind of like talk us through how that is. To
yeah.
wrap it up, how can people find you, Michael? How can the public, get to know you a little bit better? Whether it's on social media, is there a link they can go to, you know, find
Yeah.
more about
Thank
you?
you. Yeah, no, it's been so wonderful to finally meet you in person. This is so good. So the ways to find me would be LinkedIn. I'm there way too often. If you're looking
Yes.
for if you're looking for, it's Michael Neece, and there are lots of other Michael Neeces, but look for the one that says something about author and has a picture that kind of looks like this. Um, Also, you can go to my website, which is ourfutureiskind.com. You can also look at inkindbook.com. Those are good ways to find me. But yeah, my company name is Our Future is Kind. So
Well, I'll be looking forward to talking more about your book and just continue to support on LinkedIn in any way that I can. And if I'm ever in your city and you host one of those events for the youth, I would love to sit in because I'm in education. And I just think that's such a useful and powerful thing that you're doing. So I'd love to support that.
well, Monica, I would love to see you here in the central North Carolina region at some point. But otherwise, I will find you. We will get together.
Wow, I appreciate it. My regards to you, a beautiful person, and your beautiful family. Thank them for allowing you to do all the things that you do because I know it takes a village.
It really does, and thank you for what you're doing, because I know that you spread that good word of supporting people physically, and through this podcast also emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. So thank you for what you do.
It's been a pleasure, and I will see you on LinkedIn.
All right, see you there.
All right, bye.
Bye.